Hello men, and welcome to part 6 of our tutorial series on preparing and then building our wing ribs for the old-time Corben Cabin Ace. Now that beautiful old airplane was born in the mind of a fella named Ace Corben. And you know, in my mind, at least, Ace Corben and Bernie Paul did more for aircraft home building than history has given them credit for. Seems like that only among EAA-oriented people are Ace Corben and Bernie Paul offered respect and admiration. You know, they go widely unknown in general aviation at large. Perhaps someday they will get the widespread recognition they deserve, or at least I hope so. And so with that, let us turn our attention to the preparations that we must attend to before we can build our first proof of jig rib. So we have reached a point in our adventure where we must cut out and prepare our mahogany plywood gussets and our nose blocks. So here we have a sheet of 1/16 3-ply mahogany plywood. It's aircraft quality. I got a bunch of it from Aircraft Spruce and Specialty. And below that is, this is 5-ply, 1/4-inch mahogany plywood. Our gussets are going to come out of the 1/16 plywood, and all of our nose blocks are going to come out of the 1/4-inch mahogany plywood. So I've got the bandsaw set up to cut out strips out of this plywood 2 1/8 inches wide. And let me go cut several strips and I'll show you how we're going to do our gussets to expedite this whole process. So I've got my bandsaw set up with a rip fence that I C-clamped on here. Okay, we're going to take our 4 strips. We're going to do this 4 at a time. And of course, we're going to clean the edges up before we go any further. You're going to need a good sanding block and sticky back paper. I buy all of this stuff from Roy's Hobby Shop in Fort Worth. Okay, now that we've got it sanded and we've got it stacked, we're going to take, I've got these 1-inch aircraft nails, and we're going to index those things together. Probably need to use your hemostats to keep the doggone things from bending. Alright, next up we're going to take our template here. We're simply going to lay it out and lay out the center lines also. Now we're going to use our green template and a pencil to lay out 2-inch diameter circles. In the past, you could find silver pencils to do this with, but you just can't find them anymore, so it makes it a little more difficult to see. Now that we've got our center line fixed, we're going to take one of our nails, and we're going to nail it directly right through that center line. Okay, we don't want to go in completely through. We want to but we do want to catch the bottom one. Now we're going to go right on along and do that right on down that strip. Okay, so that we don't waste our good, precious aircraft quality nails, we're going to revert back to the 5/8, 16 or 19 gauge Atlas brads. They're a little bit heavier duty and a little bit shorter, but they do a better job and you're not wasting material or expensive material. Now this stack of plywood is about 41 inches long, and it's going to yield, I don't know, approximately 144 gussets once we get them cut in half. That'll be enough for close to 6 ribs, I think. So now we're simply going to separate each one of the gussets from the stack of wood. So now we're going to rough cut the perimeter of our gussets, and then we'll sand it down to the line. Now, since we're going to run our grain in our gussets vertically, we're going to make our horizontal cut this way. Oh man, the smell of fresh cut wood is fantastic. This is worth the effort alone. So we throw our pieces in a bucket and continue cutting. Okay, in this work session, we're going to cut out all of our half-round gussets that we're going to need for the entire project. This batch yielded about 144 gussets by the time we get them all cut in half. But I think the project is going to take, for the whole wing, all of the ribs for the wing, it's going to take about 650 or 700 gussets. So we're going to just go ahead and cut every one of them out in one session. Now, something you may want to do, fellas, is, and it'll pay off in dividends, is rig up your little miniature shop vac and run it over to your disc sander, and it will take away a lot of that sanding dust. It won't be floating around in your little workspace, and it certainly won't be getting into your lungs. It's worth the efforts, fellas. Now, to expedite this operation just a little bit more, you can stack them. I've got these stacked 6 deep. You could probably go more than that, but 6 seems to be a good number. So I went ahead and plotted the nose block gussets off camera, the top and the bottom here, and the trailing edge gussets that we're going to need. And went ahead and transferred the drawings onto a stack of mahogany, and so that's ready to cut out shortly. Okay, boys, it's been a long day. We've got everything pretty much rough cut, ready for final hand sanding. I started this morning at 8 o'clock. It's 7:30 p.m. now. I took about an hour and 15 minutes, a little bit for lunch, and then I had to chase parts for that disc sander. It shed some screws and I lost them. So anyway, tomorrow we're going to concentrate on cutting out all of the nose blocks, and then we'll settle in and hand sand each and every one of these pieces. Right now, it's ice cream time. Okay, man, it's about time to get our 1/4 inch out and start cutting out our nose blocks. I've laid these out. I've tried it several different ways. It seems like if I lay it out this way, I'll get a yield of 10 nose blocks. If I do it this way, and then turn it around like this, I'll get a yield of 8 nose blocks. And there's going to be a tremendous amount of wastage no matter which way you do it. But this is the way we're going to do it. Now out of this 2x4 sheet of 1/4 inch plywood, we're going to get a yield of 27 nose blocks. So we're going to have a little bit more, and I've got some out there. But we're going to need 31 nose blocks, 1 for the proof of jig rib, and then 30 for the wing. Now the reason that I ripped the wood or this plywood on the bandsaw, there's a couple of reasons. One, there's a lot less wastage. On the table saw, you've got the blade is 1/8 of an inch thick. On this, I think it's a little less than 1/16 of an inch. And you get a smoother cut this way. Okay, fellas, what we're trying to do is cut the nose block out with about 1/4 of an inch of margin. You can go a little bit more, it doesn't matter. Or you don't even have to have that, but it's awful wasteful. And be sure, now I didn't mention this a while ago, but be sure that your grain is running this way, from the nose to the trailing edge. Okay, so it's just a matter of cutting each one out, and then we'll drill the tooling holes and take it to the router jig and cut those babies out. Okay, men, just for your edification, I have got all 31 nose blocks out of a 2 foot by 4 foot 1/4 inch piece of mahogany, plus a 1 foot long 6 1/8 inch supplemental piece. Okay, men, so we've got 31 mahogany nose blocks, rough cut, and before we take them and drill our tooling holes and slip them into the old router jig, we're going to take one of these little ladies' fingernail sanders, and we're going to knock off all of the rough tooling fuzz. These little things come in handy as, well, they're just handy. You have to go down and invest in some. They don't cost very much. See, every time I go into my wife's bathroom, I'll reach in the old drawer and I'll swipe a couple of those. She never seems to notice. So anyway, we're going to knock the fuzz off these little babies and then go over there and drill our tooling holes. Alright, it's time to drill our tooling holes. Okay, there's one ready for the router jig. So I'm going to spend the next hour or so drilling all of these out. And we'll get back with you when we're ready to route them out. Oh, and by the way, anytime you're drilling your wood, use a wood backplate so that you don't tear out on the back side. We'll clean up the edges of the tooling holes just a little bit so that it'll eliminate tear out when we're taking it off of the router jig. Okay, men, I'm going to route one of the nose blocks out on camera. That's the only one I'm going to do. It'd just be redundant if I just kept on and on. Make sure it's seated. use a big bladed chisel to pry it out, but be very careful. Beautiful. Boys, that's the way to cut nose blocks. Well, there we have the nose blocks all cut out. Tomorrow we're going to dedicate to hand sanding every one of the pieces that we've cut out. So that'll take a while. All of those gussets and all of these nose blocks. But we've got a lot done today, and I'm happy with the progress. Okay, men, break out all your sanding tools, because today is going to be dedicated to hand sanding every one of these pieces that we spent the past 2 days cutting out. Put on some of your favorite music. Get some of your favorite beverages. Mine happens to be Diet 7-Up and coffee. And let's make a day of it, okay? So we've got all the nose blocks, we've given it a cursory sanding, all of them. Next up will be the half-round gussets. So we're just going to break one edge right there, one edge right there. And I'll show you why when we go to building our ribs. Okay, men, we've got all of our preparatory sanding done, everything laid out. We're ready to commence building a wing rib, and that's coming up on the next video. So as always, fellas, thanks for watching.